Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Bashmiel, Shai Bashimar Rakak Wadash, and double honors to the elder apostles of the great millstone that have taught us this truth through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, which is indeed the Holy Spirit, which in the Hebrew we say Rakak Wadash. All right. And Yahweh Bashmiel Shai Brakatham to the 144,000 that sincerely give the ministry as they give it, and to those that sincerely follow it, whom is the 1/3. And it's your brother Laban. Now, what I want to do is I want to cover this over here, this article coming from the Breitbart.com. And the headline of it says, Whitewash, UK University removes Anglo-Saxon from curriculum. In a Black Lives Matter inspired move, a British university has canceled the term Anglo-Saxon from its curriculum. And I don't need to read any further as to why they've done this. We know why they've done this, as we should. Now, first and foremost, Black Lives Matter is a funded group by a JOO-ish man by the name of George Soros. And what he did is he put these two negresses that were lesbians that didn't like so-called black men to make it look like that they were the originators of Black Lives Matter. And so this group was used down here in England to destroy anything that is in relation to the history of England. And so they get rid of this term from the universities, Anglo-Saxons. Why? Because this term goes all the way back to one people. And yes, it's the so-called Negroes that were in England that knew through their ancestry line that they were the Israelites. So they coined themselves Anglo-Saxons, which is to mean the angel sons of Isaac, or the angelic sons of Isaac, have you will. All right? And also, just to mention, people of today's generation are very forthcoming where it concerns telling the truth. Now, back in the day, people were very, how can I put this? People were very secure or insecure about the truth, and they wouldn't tell the truth. But we live in a different time. Now people, like I've said, in this generation are going on various social media outlets. You could talk about TikTok. You know, we could talk about YouTube, whatever. We could talk about Facebook. All manner of truth is getting out. Okay, and it's being passed from individual to individual. They're using Black Lives Matter where it concerns the historical side of things to cover their ass because excuse me, because they need to cover their ass on their lies. And that's how this system thrives. It thrives off of lies. All right? They need to get so-called white people in England to believe that we didn't accomplish anything and they accomplished everything, which that cannot be further from the truth. They were not the Vikings. They were not the Goths. They were not the Scythians. None of these people they were. They were none of these people. All of these people were so-called Negroes that were Israelites that the Bible speaks about, that they go back to, which Israel descended back to Isaac, okay? Which his grandfather was Abraham. So I want to read a little of this over here on the topic of British Israelism. Now, before I read, I want to say this. Under the doctrine of British Israelism, they believe that the people of Sweden, the people of Denmark, and many other European countries represent one of the 12 tribes of Israel, which that's a lie. That's not the truth at all. There's no biblical, let me say it differently. There's nothing biblical in relation in proving that. So they made that up. So anyway, British are the descendants of the lost tribes, and the word British actually means the people of the covenant. Now, who were the people of the covenant in the Bible, which they're relating themselves to? The Israelites were. Okay, so the people that are calling themselves Anglo-Saxons, which are happen to be so-called white people, which are indeed the biblical Edomites, they were not under the covenant of the Heavenly Father. There's no history that shows that the Edomites were covenanted with the Most High. But what you will find is that the Israelites were. So now what we're going to do now is we're going to read what's within this British Israelism stuff right over here. So the key component of British Israelism is its representation of the migration of the lost tribes of Israel. Adherents suggested that the Scythians, Cimmerians, and Goths represented of these lost tribes, which I would agree. Why? Because the Scythians now were also mentioned in the book of Colossians 3 and verse 11 to be exact, as it reads, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but the anointed is all and in all. So the Apostle Paul was speaking to these people, which one would think, if you're coming from a place of simplicity, you would think, oh, well, this proves that the Lord is for every other nation, because he went to these people. They weren't Israelites. They weren't described as Israelites. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the reason why the Apostle Paul was speaking to these people, because these people were in relation to the Jews, but they've lost their heritage. So these are what you would call Israelite foreigners, which were belonging to everything that the Jews had. And I'm talking about the covenant. They were those same covenanted people. Let me say it differently. They were coming from the same genealogy of the actual Jews that knew they were the people that knew they were Israelites. And these were Jews that became Greeks, Greek-speaking Jews that became Hellenized, that lost the customs and the practices of the Jews that they were related to, because they were casted away. All right. As a matter of fact, let me go and prove that, and I'll be right back. Here it is right here. So this is from the word Grecian. And there's a point that I want to read in this dictionary here. So as it reads, Grecians were Greek-speaking Jews, folks of the dispersion from areas predominantly Greek. So there you go. Under the word Grecians, which they were also known as the Hellenized. And now let's look up that word Hellen. Yeah, here we have it right here. Hellenists, Jews who made Greek their tongue, and with it often adopted Greek ideas and practices. So that's who these people were. They were Israelites, so-called Negroes that adopted Greek customs because they were Hellenized by the Greeks. When you go into the history of the Apocrypha in the book of Maccabees, it explains very well what happened when you had Antiochus Epiphanes, which was one which came out of a wicked root. In other words, he came out of the descendants of Edom, and he persecuted the Jews and colonized them basically, and they became likened unto the Edomites that were considering themselves Greeks. Okay, and that's how they became the uncircumcised, which represented them losing their customs. They didn't keep the circumcision and everything that the Jews kept, which were known as the circumcision. The Jews represented the people among our people that knew their customs, and those that didn't know their customs. Barbarians, Scythians, bond nor free. So even the Scythians are a part of that. All right? They're Israelites, which the Apostle Paul was bringing them back to what they have lost. In this case, bringing them back to the Messiah, which through the Messiah, they would gain all things back that they have lost. Let me put it that way instead. So now let's continue to read on with this. So now we're going to get to another point, and I want to read from over here. Herodotus reported that the ancient Persians called all of the Scythians Sake, but they called themselves Skalati. However, a modern comparisons of the forms which are given in other ancient languages suggests that Scuda was their name. Ancient writers such as Josephus and Jerome would associate the Scythians, the people of Gog and Magog, which they're going off on that, which the Gog and Magog people are descendants of Japhet. All right. So how could they be the Scythians? How could they be Israelites but people of Gog and Magog? That don't make any sense. So as it reads, but British Israelist etymologists would see in Sake a name derived from the biblical Isaac, claiming that the appearance of the Scythians, where they claim the lost tribes were last documented, also supported a connection. Further, British Israelists find support in the superficial resemblance between King Jehu's pointed headdress and that of the captive Sakai king seen to the far right on the Behistun rock. Now here's the point. The chain of etymological identification leading from Isaac to the Sake was continued to the Saxon, interpreted as Sax's sons, the sons of Isaac, who are portrayed as invading England from Denmark, the land of the tribe of Dan, which they're going off on that. Okay? So the point of the matter is that they believed, because they had the ancestral information, that they were the Israelites, and the Bible proves it too. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to show you, brothers and sisters, a couple of things, just a few things on his site in regards to the images and the coins and the buildings. Now, this is from a website which was formulated by my relative called trueracefacts.com, which I totally agree with the name of this website being called that. Most definitely, because, hey, man, Esau's been lying for years to hide this history. So the fact of the matter is, around the 7th century, as you have it here, was an Anglo-Saxon king, Ethelred of Mercia, England, Ethelred, so-called black nobility. Black Anglo-Saxon king, Ethelred of Mercia, England, 7th century Saxon, Bamberg Castle. Now, before I go further, what I want to say is most scholars agree that the Anglo-Saxons were in effect from the 5th century AD, also known as currently CE, to 1066 CE. right? Just to mention. And what do we have here? We see a coin, and as you can see, the face on the coin is that of a face of a so-called Negro. All right? It's very clear cut and dry to see that. And even the buildings give it away. Now, what do these buildings remind you of? As it should. It should remind you of those ancient buildings of ancient Israel that is still standing in the land of Israel to this very day, proving once again that the so-called Negro is the Israelite. All right? And that's what they were saying when they coined themselves Anglo Saxons. Going back to their ancestors, that was the case, that they were Israelites. All right? So let's read something else over here. 757 C. Anglo-Saxon King Arthur of Mercia, England, so-called black nobility. As you can see over here, another face which is very Negroid, and the buildings itself shows you once again that this is a building that an Israelite would build. All right? So it's very clear. And then if we want to talk about building constructs, if you look at the architect of the Roman style buildings and the Greek style buildings, those buildings go back to the same archaeological building in Jordan, which is a place in Jordan called Petra, proving that the so-called white people go back to the Edomites, because that's how they used to build their constructs. All right. Now the Israelites would build their buildings like this everywhere they went, because every nation has a signature build on how they build, just like how every person has a signature writing. So the style of buildings that we had all over England, which was basically the same style of the ancient Israel buildings, never left us. Why? Because we are those people. And the buildings solidified that these people were right in coining themselves Anglo-Saxons, which means the angelic sons of Isaac, because they descend from Isaac, going back to their forefather Jacob. Hence is which you get the term Britain from, or British. The term British meaning that of the people of the covenant, which that was the covenant line, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See, it all makes sense when you put it all together. So now let's read Revelations 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and the great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, which the dragon represents the ancient Roman Empire, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So what you had is you had men that were coming from the elk of Jacob, that were rising within the rankings of ancient Rome and took it over. And the western part of Rome failed because they had their economic problems and things of that nature. So the eastern part of Rome grew. And then that part of Rome became later into which was called the Holy Roman Empire, which our people were becoming more prominent in. And as time progressed over the 1,000-year period from the Holy Roman Empire all the way to the very end of the Middle Ages, what era that you have next coming? The era of the Renaissance. All right. So after the 1,000 years was set, then these devils came back into power again, as Revelations the 3rd verse would read to you. Revelations 20 and 3 would read to you. And cast them into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. So from the time of when they was coining themselves, from the time of when it was known as the Renaissance period on towards the time that we are now living in, That is the little season that these Edomites have been ruling for. And they're about to reach the end of their little season. Okay? So I just wanted to bring this in because all of this ties into the book of Revelation, the 20th chapter, which is the prophecy that John the Revelator saw in the island of Patmos, one of them, which he saw Jake taking over the ancient Roman Empire and taking over these devils and having them as slaves. And that's the ultimate reason why they don't really want to go back to the term Anglo-Saxon, because it ties all the way back to when we had them in captivity, and that we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks about. Just that term right here. Okay? So that's all I got to say with this, man. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Bashmi Shai Bashma Rakak Wadash, and double honors to the elder apostles, and as well as even including the elder bishops on down, and to all of the Akim that is sincere in giving this ministry. Yahweh Bashmi Shai Brakathum, who indeed is 144,000, and as well as even to those that sincerely follow this ministry, whom is the 1/3. Over and out. Shalom.